There is no perfect system, right? The perfect system is the one that works for you, your personality type, your lifestyle and habits, and feels expansive for you, not restricting. You're listening to the Transcendent Farmer podcast with your host, Emily Reno, a place where we dive deep into the question of accessing land and capital to start a farm. You see, I'm right alongside my listeners, working to start a farm of my own within the next 5 years. And at the same time, I've had a huge travel bug since I was in community college. Back in November of 2023, I sold all of my belongings and became a digital nomad, working as a remote consultant in food systems planning with clients mostly in the upper Midwest and the United States. And I took my mic with me as I traveled everywhere from India to Australia to Costa Rica, digging into stories around mental health and well-being, personal growth, holistic business development, and more. You see, my hunch is that while folks are looking at technical solutions to help the next generation access land and capital to start their farm, such as tax incentives and land access databases, the change that we're seeking has a lot more to do with the non-material. And in my own experiences, my life changed when I started doing the inner work to shift my thoughts, and therefore, my reality. That's why in this podcast, we dive deep into topics like manifestation, energy, and spirit. There's no topic that's off the table, and I'm so excited for you to join me in this journey as I continue to travel, follow my curiosity, and explore the parts of farming that are a bit more taboo and tender. This episode of the Transcendent Farmer podcast is sponsored by Compeer Financial, a member-owned farm credit cooperative providing financial products and services to support agriculture and rural communities in Illinois, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Compeer Financial is the third largest cooperative in the farm credit system. Based in the upper Midwest with $31.9 billion in total assets, they take a forward-thinking approach to provide innovative, customized financial solutions and expertise to meet the unique needs and dreams of those they serve. Contact Sai Tao, Senior Lending Specialist at 612-597-4086 or by email at sai.tao, that's sai.thao, at compeer.com. Compeer Financial is an equal opportunity employer and provider and an equal credit opportunity lender. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Transcendent Farmer podcast. Bienvenidos a otro episodio. I hope that you all are doing well out there on El Día de Amor y Amistad, as they say in Mexico. It's quite cool, actually. I love how here they don't say Happy Valentine's Day. They say Happy Day of Love and Friendship. So I hope that you have something planned, even if it's just for yourself, to just show yourself a little bit of love. Today, I'm going to be sharing 10 tools to help you follow through on your goals. And this is inspired by a lot of conversations that I have been having with folks who have reached out for advice, and I've been having conversations with recently. And it seems like a theme that I just want to touch on and lift up. And there is an accompanying blog post for this one. So I'm going to walk through some of those tools today. But first, I want to just provide an, as always, update on where I find myself in the world, some of the things that I'm building right now through the business, which is really exciting. I've been very inspired by some blog posts and really just podcast episodes from other podcasters who have tried to figure out, like, how do you actually make a living doing this? And how can you really pour your love into something, but also make sure that that comes back to you in the form of just monetary compensation for your time? I know that a lot of you out there who are listening are in a similar boat where you love what you do. You want to share that with the world and with others, but you also want to get paid and be able to pay your bills. And so I'm building a couple of things that are related to that. And I'm excited to share what that looks like. So over the last couple of weeks, since the last episode was published, I have continued to be in the process of searching for an apartment here in León in central Mexico, the state of Guanajuato. And I feel like there are definitely some lessons that I have been learning from this experience, and also just through the people that I have met over the last couple of weeks, whether it's the landlords that I've met or the people who are showing the apartments or taxi drivers. I have learned so much from the taxi drivers of the different Ubers that I have taken. It's been really wonderful. And so the first theme that has really come up is that of surrender. I feel like oftentimes it's when we give up striving so hard that the thing that we want comes through. And this is a theme that I have heard over and over again in the space of manifestation. It was a theme that came up in conversation with someone that I met through a walking tour of the downtown city area, and also just something that I've heard a lot from one of my favorite leaders and facilitators. Her name is Taylor Eaton. And it's sort of like in the moment that you give up, and it's not necessarily give up, but you just let go, right? You let go of the outcome or the specific timeline with which you wanted to have the thing happen. It's almost like clockwork how quickly that thing that you want just appears. And I think that's a really key part of my process as well, that I can take action toward the thing that I want, but at the same time, I also have to lean in to this energy of surrender. The other thing that has come up is just that you cannot make sound decisions when you are under stress, and you are more likely to make a mistake or overlook an important detail. That is definitely what happened to me with a place that I had signed an agreement with, and basically after day one, I had to leave. And that was a lesson that I had to learn. And I believe that in part it was because I was so adamant about having this certain date by which I would find a place. And I feel like I didn't necessarily cut corners, but there were a lot of things that I felt like I didn't uphold my own standards around what I was looking for in terms of a space. And that kind of came back and bit me in the butt a little bit. And so I learned from that, right? My advice to you as it relates to your own farming ambitions is to think about a goal that you're currently working towards. Ask yourself, can I identify any opportunities to let go? And whether that's of the timeline that you had in mind for when this thing is going to happen or the details about how, right? Can you focus on the feeling of what it's like to have already achieved your goal before it actually happens? And do you notice any shifts in your body when you start to think about it like that? As an extra challenge, I want you to choose one moment, day, or hour in which ordinarily you would be super focused on taking action toward your goal, and instead do something completely different that gets you in headspace that's more creative, alive, fun, adventurous. Maybe it's out of your comfort zone, something that goes against your natural instinct. This is exactly what I did last weekend. And basically, since I arrived at my new Airbnb, because I still, haven't found the right apartment or house to rent, and I cannot tell you how much that has shifted my perspective about this whole situation. I feel like I'm able to step back, see the situation with a more compassionate lens. I will throw in the show notes a link to my new favorite affirmation YouTube video that I've been listening to almost every morning for at least a month now. That has really helped me with this. And I'm really working to look at myself and the situation with more kind eyes, right? The kind of eyes that a grandmother would look at you with, because she has this knowing that everything is going to be okay. So in today's episode, what I wanted to do was mix things up a little bit and share some statistics about this podcast that I think you will find interesting. At least I do. I love to nerd out about the numbers, the demographics, where people are listening from. There's a bigger story that I would like to be able to tell about my listeners, though, right? In terms of what brought them here. Like, how did they find out about the podcast? What's their favorite episode? So, as an incentive to drive a little bit of more traction in that area, for every person that leaves a review for one of the episodes of this podcast within 30 days of this episode being published, I will answer one of your dying questions related to personal growth, spirituality, farming, business development, international travel, whatever, category you are just dying to learn more about in a future episode, and I will give you a shout out. So leave a comment and the question that you want answered, and that's all you have to do. This episode of the Transcendent Farmer Podcast is sponsored by Massage Alchemy Botanicals and Turkey Road Farm Products based in Castleton, North Dakota, and owned by Shannon Radcliffe Beach. Shannon is an organic farmer, herbalist, massage therapist, and earth mother. Her mission is to promote health and wellness by connecting people with the healing power of plants. To achieve this, Shannon crafts herbal remedies and products made from the herbs and berries she grows on her farm
as well as hosting events and classes that teach practical herbal knowledge and how to live more harmoniously with the cycles of nature. Find out more about their products and services by visiting their website or following them on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube.
Okay, so let's dig into this. For full transparency, what I'm pulling from are statistics that are specifically coming from Spotify. There's two different platforms that you can look at in terms of where you get your information from, and at least where I've got my stuff loaded onto. And so I'm going to lean into the information on Spotify because I think it's really cool, and I think it's a little bit more comprehensive than what I'm able to look at through Apple Podcasts. So this is really interesting to me. When we break down the gender demographics of people who are listening to this podcast, 66.7% of listeners identify as male and 33.3% identify as female. Now, what's really fascinating about this is that when you start to break it down by age, for those listeners that are in the range of 35 to 44, 100% of listeners identify as male. I don't know why that's so interesting to me, but it really is. And then when you look at the other age gap or other age range for which listeners identify, the most in terms of their age, 28 to 34 years old, 33.3% identify as male and 66.7% identify as female. Now, what I find kind of cool is looking beyond just gender and age to geographic location. I'm going to skip past the number one country in terms of listeners and instead challenge you to think about what ranks in basically number of countries number 2. And this comes in at 5.6%. I would say there's probably about 20 countries that are listed here in terms of where listeners are coming from. And granted, there might just be one person that is listening from that single country, but still, that's really interesting to me. So the country that comes in second place is not, in fact, Australia at 2.1%. It is not Costa Rica at 2.3%. It is not Mexico at 1.4%. I think that one got boosted recently. And in fact, it is not Canada at 3.7%. Ding, ding, ding. If you guessed India, you are correct, coming in at 5.6%. We have a fair amount of listeners coming in from there. And if you are just now tuning into the Transcendent Farmer for the first time, I will make sure to link the couple of episodes that I believe drove the most traction around this in the show notes. And those were the ones where I interviewed my teachers as part of my yoga teacher training that I completed back in December of 2023. Gosh, that was so long ago, in Rishikesh. And I'm certain that because my teachers shared these episodes on their platforms, that's what drove so much traction. Okay, so then digging into US listeners, which represent 75% of listeners, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that you can probably figure out which state or two ranks in the top 5. I'm going to give you some options and then you can guess in your head and then I'll let you know what it is. This is actually really interesting. I wasn't expecting this. So, okay, of the top 5 options, we've got North Dakota, California, Wisconsin, Massachusetts, and Minnesota. If you guessed Massachusetts, you're wrong. That came in at 4.9%. If you guessed California, also wrong. That came in at 5.2%. If you guessed Wisconsin, you're also wrong. That came in at 4.9% of listeners. If you guessed North Dakota, you are getting closer. That came in at 11% of listeners. And then last but not least, if you guessed Minnesota, ding, 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 you are a winner. That represents 52.2% of our listeners who are tuning in from the US. So I just wanted to share a little bit of that with you because I think it's really cool to be able to see that we have listeners from all over the world. I think some of the ones that are most like Poland, China, Thailand, Panama, Romania, New Zealand, Malaysia, Norway, Pakistan, Spain, Ukraine, Germany, Sweden, Switzerland, Nigeria, France, Russia, the UK, South Africa. People are finding out about this. 1.4% of listeners in the Netherlands. How cool is that? I don't know how you guys are finding this, but again, like I mentioned, throw in one of your dying questions, give a shout out from what country that you're listening to in the reviews, and I'll answer that on a future episode. Okay, so with that, I want to introduce a couple of offerings that I am building that I think you may be interested in, because if you are a follower of the work of the Transcendent Farmer, this is most likely to be relevant for what you're trying to do. So the first one that I have created, it's called From Field to Finance. And this is going to be an ebook YouTube series that I'm creating. So I will be kicking that off most likely by the end of this month. I will have published my first video as part of the series. Really what it is about is helping guide you along the process that I am taking in order to publish, basically write, publish, market, and essentially sell my first ebook. And the idea is that for those of you who are trying to diversify your revenue streams beyond production and really thinking about how are you evening out your cash flow over the course of the growing season, you likely have a lot of information and knowledge that you could be sharing with other people who maybe are not as far along in their process, whatever that thing is, right? This could be related to farming. This could be related to a job that you had before you got in farming. It could be related to some other skill that you learned in life that people are willing to pay to learn a little bit more about to help them in their own journey. And so the focus of my ebook is going to be about how to become a digital nomad. And it's sort of this meta experience, right? Because while the key audience for the actual book itself may not be the same kind of audience as people for this podcast, the things that I'm teaching you along the way of this YouTube series, I think will be. And so we're going to cover my writing process, like how am I blocking off time to be able to do that consistently and to basically complete the writing of this ebook. Then I'm going to be sharing with you like how am I using some of these AI tools that I'm aware of to be able to then come up with a framework for marketing. I'm going to also be showing you how I've been learning from this other online course about like AI and graphic design, how I'm going to design my ebook. And instead of paying some professional graphic designer to do all of the work for me, I'm going to do it myself. And I'm going to show you how I'm doing that, which I'm really excited about. This has been a course that I've been involved in for about a year now. And it's been a long process of learning that stuff. And I really tried to figure out like, how can I put this into practice and how can I make it useful for other people? And this is really the place that I'm going to start. So there's that. And then I'm also going to show you how I'm using, AI tools to help with the marketing, like I mentioned, and getting it out there. And then, evaluating what different options do I have for selling this and accepting payment and reducing friction in the process of someone finding out about the ebook and then making the purchase and then getting access to the file to download. If you would like more one-on-one support for your process, and this is something that you're really excited about, maybe it's something that you've been thinking about for a long time and you'd kind of want to be in more of a group setting, I would recommend grabbing a VIP pass for this, which is priced with tax at $51.45. And basically, we will have a full hour that's dedicated to open Q&A. And depending on how many people sign up for that, you may actually get a fair amount of one-on-one time to be able to ask your questions about what you're working on. You can listen to other people's questions, learn from them. But I just really wanted to provide that as an option because I know that there are some people that would benefit more from having that one-on-one time. The other thing that I'm building right now that I'm really excited about is called the Land, Loans, and Grants Challenge. So this is a 3-day farm funding challenge. And I feel like one of the things that I hear the most from folks that I work with is to know where to find the funding to support their farm business endeavors, how they can leverage AI to help streamline their research and application writing and positioning of their business in the market, how to better manage their time, which is what we're going to talk a little bit about today, knowing where to start when they have a lot of ideas, and also just getting started in general. So the key dates for this is that you can register for the 3-day challenge by the 28th of February. Again, this is completely free. I'm trying something out that's new. We're going to see how it goes. The first 20 people that complete the challenge are eligible for lifetime membership to a challenge-based community that I'm building at a significantly discounted rate as opposed to the usual monthly subscription cost. So we will kick off over the lunch hour for folks that are in Central Standard Time. This is going to be March 3rd, 4th, and 5th from 12 to 1 p.m. And I will put the registration link in the show notes for this episode so that you can sign up. The last update in terms of things that I'm building right now is the Farmer Wellness Summit. This is going to be planned for the fall of 2025, like winter 2026. And the landing page for that is getting built out right now, which is really exciting. Thank you, Emma, for your support on that. I will be soliciting interest from volunteers to serve on our planning team. And I would really love your feedback and ideas about how to make one of these volunteer positions irresistible because of the benefits and the perks of being involved, aside from your registration being covered. Because I think that's a pretty standard thing where it's like, oh, you volunteer for several hours and then you get in for free. But I feel like I can do better and I want to do better. And I want to make this something that people are just like dying to apply for and that I'm overwhelmed by the number of people that sign up. So send me your ideas, whether that's via WhatsApp, email, direct message me on social media. I'm sure you can figure out how to get in touch with me based on all of the content and information that I've shared thus far. All right, so let's walk through the 10 tools that can help you, at least 10 tools that have helped me follow through on my goals and that I believe may be of use in your own process. One of the things that comes up a lot in my work is this theme of accountability. Whether I'm talking with farmers, fellow entrepreneurs, or colleagues with my consulting projects, it can be the biggest source of support and also one of the biggest gaps that we have. And not necessarily for lack of desire, but a lack of good models of peers who create those systems for themselves. I would say that as someone who is constantly distracted, you'll notice that a lot of the tools that I describe in today's list have to do with managing distraction. I definitely would say that I credit my systems for accountability as one of the biggest reasons that I have been able to move forward both in business and in life. And I wanted to share those with you today because it seems to be a big theme that's been coming up in terms of requests that I've been having with folks one-on-one. I would also encourage you, if you have some favorite tools that you would like to share with the rest of the community, definitely do so when you leave a review or like a comment on this particular episode. And then I will go ahead and share those in a future episode, probably the next one as part of my introduction, and give you a shout out so that we can continue to share the love and continue to build this amazing community. I also want to make note that there is no perfect system, right? The perfect system is the one that works for you, your personality type, your lifestyle and habits, and feels expansive for you, not restricting. So my recommendation is to feel free to try some of these out, like riff on them to build your own, but above all, have fun. And I think what's important to also note about these is like, I'm not getting any kind of affiliate links or commissions from the things that I'm sharing with you today. I really just love them. So here we go with the list. Number 1, Toggl. This is spelled Toggl. It doesn't have an E at the end. This is one of my favorite plugins of all time. A plugin is essentially like an extension that you would add to your web browser, whether you use Safari or Google Chrome or whatever that looks like. Essentially, you download it from the main website and then it gets added to your browser page so that whenever you pull up a new window, you've got this little button in the upper right-hand corner that is now like a timer. And so it looks like a little power button. And I use this religiously for time tracking to keep track of my projects, my contracts, things that I'm working on, whether it's paid or unpaid. I keep track of both. And I've built into the system a tag for myself that's actually called unbillable. So I'm still keeping track of everything that I do, even if it's not something that I'm getting paid for. And what I really enjoy about this is that every week they send you a summary report of your time. And so it's basically just like this lovely list where it'll say what the project was that you were working on and the exact amount of time that you stamped working on that particular project. So what helps me for this particular piece is that I will look at each week the summary, and it helps me audit how I'm spending my time. And by audit, I mean reflect on and think about, oh yeah, this was like a really good week for billable hours, or oh yeah, that actually was not the greatest because I was spending a lot of time doing XYZ. It also is a time for me to be able to practice self-compassion and say, I didn't put that many billable hours in this week, but I was able to move forward on a lot of other things that were really meaningful or important to me. Or I could even celebrate how many hours I didn't put in on a screen this week and how I was able to spend my time off screen and in person with people doing things that are still very meaningful to me. Tool number 2, Google Calendar. I use my calendar as my to-do list. That's a little bit different than the way that other people do it. So it can appear quite overwhelming to others, but I also find that it helps me to be really efficient in what I do and also assess how good I am at keeping track of how much time that I spend on certain projects. And sometimes I will come back to it as a visual reference from when I get distracted to remind myself of the task that I'm supposed to be working on. So for example, if I am just like, I open my inbox to find something in particular, but then I end up responding to other things that I saw come in, and then suddenly a half hour is gone because I've just spent time going through my emails. I will literally just forget what I was supposed to be working on in the project that I was engaged in. And so I will open up my calendar, and then I'll look to see what was the thing that I had blocked off for this particular hour to remind myself of, again, what I'm supposed to be working on. Tool number 3, a high quality notebook with no lines. The no lines is so key. I don't know how to pronounce it properly. I don't know if it's Moleskine or Moleskine, but it is my favorite brand of notebooks because they have really good quality paper and they make their notebooks with blank pages. This allows me to do mind mapping. I can write down my notes, maybe my tasks, which sometimes I will do just for a single day if my head is sort of getting overwhelmed by a lot of mental to-dos. Instead of taking the time to put it in my Google Calendar, I'll just write it all down, and then I'll take time later to then put that back in my calendar or something like that. It's also great for doodling. And I really like writing down my lists with, check marks to remind myself of high priority tasks in a day. Maybe I have like a 3-hour time block created for something, and then there's like 6 different tasks within that time block that I want to focus on. Sometimes I do that. If you're looking for inspiration, I highly recommend going on Pinterest and just putting in bullet journaling, and it can give you great frameworks for to-do lists or calendars or anything like that. And it's quite artistic. So if you're on the more creative spectrum of things, that can be really helpful. I just wanted to interrupt this episode to let you know that I created this podcast because I realized that working as a food systems consultant, I practically live and breathe food systems and land access in particular. So if you are struggling with 1, gaining clarity around your pathway in that field, 2, accessing the resources that you need to start your operation, or 3, are curious about how you can bring more intention and strategy to your work in the food systems field, and you feel like there's more to life than just showing up for your job and clocking out at the end of the day, then I know that this podcast is going to be a great resource for you. I also love working one-on-one with people and helping them through their challenges. When you're ready to get feedback from someone else who's been there or need a thought partner about an idea that you're considering, you can put a time on my calendar to pick my brain for a small fee. Basically what you'd spend on coffee in a couple of weeks, depending on how much you drink, of course. This is a new service that I'm going to be offering, and I honestly don't know for how long, so don't wait too long to book a time. I'll make sure that the link to do so is in the show notes for this episode and the blog post that's on the website. So with that, let's get back to the episode. Tool number 4, monthly check-ins with professional colleagues and mentors. I have amassed a small group of friends and colleagues that I check in with regularly about both business and life. Sometimes it's a phone call, sometimes it's a Zoom call, but either way, these people want to hear about progress that I'm making and my goals for the coming weeks and months, and I do the same for them. I want to know what progress that they're making, and we typically will use that time to then, wrap up by saying, all right, what's the most important thing that you want to accomplish in the next week or in the next month, however frequent it is that we have our check-ins. This has been absolutely essential. Tool number 5, tomato timer. This is a Pomodoro style timer that goes for increments of 25 minutes and then you take a 5-minute break. This is great for those days when I'm working long hours on a single project and I want to keep moving my body and stay focused. So I'll use that 5 minutes to get up and stretch. Maybe I'll do some push-ups, use the restroom, whatever I need to, fill up my water bottle, walk around, whatever that needs to look like. And it can be very, very helpful, especially when I'm doing design stuff. I can just really get in the zone and like 3 hours can go by and I haven't moved my body at all. I've just been sitting in front of the screen. So that has been really, really helpful for me. And you can schedule both short and long breaks. There's tons of different options for Pomodoro timers out there. There's stuff that you can download on your phone as an app, but I really like Tomato Timer. Tool number 6, airplane mode and focus mode on my laptop or phone. These are the best for controlling distractions. I often will flip my phone downward or even put it in the other room to stay focused. And again, you'll notice that a lot of these tools have to do with reducing distraction. One of the things that can be hard about that is that when I put my phone on airplane mode, it will only allow me to play the songs on my phone from Apple Music that I have downloaded. A lot of times it's using Wi-Fi in order to connect to my other music. So that can be a little bit limiting. And sometimes I'll switch to Spotify, for example, because it doesn't have the same limitations, but it does have ads. So always things to think about. Speaking of which, tool number 7, a great playlist, right? Set the mood with good music and you really cannot fail. Tool number 8, coffee shops and public libraries. Sometimes you just need to be around people to feel productive, and that really works for me. So when I want to mix things up and I don't want to work from home, I will just go out to a coffee shop or I'll go to a public library if that's something that you have access to. And I'll just, sit down, make sure that I have snacks and hydration and just focus on what I need to do. Tool number 9, an assistant. This honestly has been the best investment that I've made in my business and my personal workflows. And I think that I'm really grateful that I did it so early on when I started working for myself. Nothing beats being able to delegate and have support, right? Like weekly check-ins that help you stay focused on moving things along. I highly, highly recommend this. And it does not have to be that expensive, right? So don't underestimate the power of how a handful of dollars, even if you just start out with like 10 hours a month of support, right? That's 2 hours a week, essentially. You, I think, will thank me later for this one. Tool number 10, a daily and weekly journaling practice. I don't believe that we give ourselves enough time to process all of the information that we are taking in or setting intentions about how we want to feel and what we want to change. I personally have a gratitude journal that I write in twice daily, and I am constantly writing down reflections from meetings and goals that I have, whether that's related to finance, business, personal relationships, fitness. It has been a real game changer for me. And it started out with the 5-minute journal, which I'll link in the show notes for today. It was a gift from a friend, Megan, actually. She's mentioned on this podcast and in other areas quite a bit. She had a huge influence on me. And this gratitude journal was one of those things that just really shifted things for me in my life. And I have since kind of adopted my own flavor of the same practice without actually using the same book. That's how powerful it's been for me. So I highly, highly recommend. I wanted to take a moment to give a shout out to one of the Transcendent Farmer podcast's newest sponsors, the Fargo-Moorhead Wellness Collective. The FM Wellness Collective is a community of wellness practitioners in the Fargo-Moorhead area dedicated to supporting and empowering one another. They serve as a reliable resource for the community to connect with wellness professionals, making wellness more accessible and strengthening the culture of well-being in the Fargo-Moorhead area. Learn more by visiting the links in the show notes or finding the collective on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I am wishing you the best in following through on your goals. I hope that some of these things are helpful for you. It can be sometimes overwhelming to be overloaded with a ton of information. So my recommendation is to take one of these tools, try it out for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, however long you'd like. And then if you find that you enjoy it, stick with it and then add one more tool in. and do the same thing. Continue to iterate and build your systems over time. This is not going to happen overnight. Habits are hard to break and also hard to build. And so I want you to be kind to yourself as you experiment with some of these different tools. And I also, again, wanted to encourage you to have fun with it, because if you are not finding joy in your work, you're just going to continue to be circulating this really negative energy that is being hard on yourself, telling yourself that you're not good enough, and it's just not productive. So I hope you have a great day ahead or evening in front of you, wherever you may find yourself in the world, and stay tuned for more in the next episode.
If you love this conversation as much as we did, feel free to share the love by passing it along to a friend or fellow farmer, and be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss another episode. Until next time, friends.